All right, good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician, and every morning I try to come up with something you can use to keep your car on the road. Keep it safe, keep it dependable, keep it where you can make it last longer than the 8-year car payment note you may have. I didn't realize that people had to pay 8 years on car payments, but when you've got a car that runs, average price for a car today is around I want to say around $35,000, maybe off a little bit, but somewhere in that area. And you stretch it out over 8 years, you'll end up paying back about $70,000 before the car is already paid. So my advice is buy a car that's a couple years old and it's already lost about half its value, so to speak. Cars are not investments, and then turn around and purchase that car a couple years old and pay it off a lot quicker. Don't stretch it out for 8 years, or don't even stretch it out for 5 years. Try to get it done as quickly as possible, because that money that you're spending in interest, you could be used towards maintenance. And I don't care what car you have, all cars need maintenance, whether it's changing the oil, which is maintenance, and to the things they don't think about, such as ball joints. Ball joints. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about front end wear this morning. Today's cars don't have grease fittings in them. They don't. I mean, you go to a car to get a lube, oil, and filter, there's no lube. There's no grease going into joints. If there is, it's a rarity. About the only thing I can think of that may have grease fittings may be some of the trucks out there. Some of the larger trucks, 250s, 350s, 450s, still have grease fittings on them, like those series. But the smaller trucks, like the half tons, the little SUVs, those type cars don't have grease fittings in them. The reason they don't have grease fittings in it is because they get green credits from the federal government to help keep your water safe. Now you're going, James, I just thought I heard you say that they get green credits from the federal government, the car manufacturers, to keep my drinking water safe. Did you really say that? The answer is yes, I said that. Because that's exactly why you don't have grease fittings on your car. They have decided that to keep your groundwater safe, to remove the grease fittings, so you can't, when you go to get your car, change the oil and change the filters and all that, they're supposed to grease it, but they don't grease it because there's no grease fittings, because they get green credits because they're afraid that the guy who's changing your oil will put too much grease in it. It will come out, and as you drive down the road, it will fall on the road and get washed into the storm sewers, storm drains, and eventually make its way into our groundwater. And that's going to cause us a lot of problems. Yeah, those things happen. Yeah, those things do happen, but it's really not that big of it because it takes more energy, and you get more pollution by having to remake this ball joint than it would be just if people put grease in it. Ball joints, here's a ball joint right here. It's got a lot of play in it. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a lot of play. That ball joint goes up and down more than it's supposed to go up and down. Shouldn't even have any play in it. And that affects your alignment, your toe in, your toe out. I got that backwards. Toe in, toe out. And it affects it affects a lot of things. It actually affects your caster and your camber, depending on if you're stopping, the car will pull to the right or pull to the left, because it changes the angle of your steering, and it makes your tires wear out faster. Now, that's what happens when you don't grease your ball joints, or you grease your front end parts, because they're trying to save the groundwater out there, and they get green credits for it. What they're doing is they're screwing you and me, telling us that it's raining while they pee down our back. I know I shouldn't say things like that, but here's the reality. It costs more energy, and it costs more money out of your pocket to fix your front end. After we were talking to a gentleman yesterday, he has 36,000 miles on his 2010 truck. I said, the odds are your ball joints have play in them at 36,000 miles. And he says, really? And I said, yeah. And there's a standing joke around here that most trucks, the day after they come out of warranty, which is 3 years, 36,000 miles, it seems like the ball joints have play in them. It just seems that way. Well, we checked his out. His weren't. They didn't have any play in it. They were fine. But what we do see is we see a lot of cars that come in 45,000, 50,000, starting from 36,000 miles up, that have play in them. The ball joints need to be changed. We had a car come in the other day, 42,000 miles. Ball joints need to be changed. It was a Chevrolet, all 4 of them. Why they need to be changed? Because there's no grease fittings in them. If they put grease fittings in there, and every time you got an oil change over 5,000 to 6,000 miles, you would not be spending the thousands of dollars you're spending needlessly. Well, I shouldn't say needlessly. Yeah, needlessly. Because these ball joints, they're not cheap to be replaced. They're very expensive. If you had to change the upper and lower ball joints on both sides of a car, you're talking about $200 to $300 per joint installed. It's about 2 hours. Anna Marie, help me out here. I don't want to get the labor wrong. If someone was changing all 4 ball joints on a truck, on a Ford truck, how many hours is that? Do you have?
Well, I know we have some jobs like this. It's like 4 hours, and then I know there's other jobs that are about 7 hours.
Well,
so it could go either way.
Yeah, some of these, like Dodge trucks, Dodge trucks, and some General Motors trucks, we got the great big rivets in them. Those two right there take some time to get out correctly. And if you don't do it correctly, it's a nightmare. I've had to go behind people that were trying to do it and weren't doing it quite right, and had to go in there and straighten it out. But that's one of the things we see. It could be $700 to $700+ for labor, or as low as $400. So $400 to $700 labor to repair a front end. That's a lot of money. How much grease could you put in the car? How much green credits did they actually get from the federal government to not put grease fittings on the bottom of your ball joint, or your end of your tie rod ends, or your pitman arm, or your idler arm, all those parts, and they wear out, ladies and gentlemen. It's just the fact of life. If you got moving mechanical parts and they get dry and they're exposed to water and they get sand and mud put on them, and you can't flush out that sand and mud with grease to lubricate it, guess what? It's going to die, and it's going to die quickly. 36,000 miles is not uncommon to find bad ball joints in cars and trucks out there. Mainly it's the trucks. The cars, they are mainly McPherson strut, and they don't seem to have the lower ball joint wear out problems that we see with trucks. Trucks, on the other hand, are full frame. They got upper and lower ball joints. They do. They just seem to wear out more, maybe because there's no grease fittings on there, and their trucks are work trucks, and people take them down bumpy roads. And one of the things I have found out, it normally seems to be the passenger side ball joints that wear out before the driver's side ball joints. And my guys asked me the other day, said, "Why is that?" And I said, when you drive a car, what's the first? If you go a little too far to the right, what happens to the tire? And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "If you go too far to the right on the road, what's the tire do?" "Well, it runs off the edge." That's correct. Hits all those little bumps in the road right there, and it's where all the the potholes are. And I said that makes the ball joint do a lot more work trying to keep the car on the road. If you go to the left, you just get those little turtles in the road dividers, and there's not much. The ball joints don't do much work going up and down in movement. So that's one of the reasons we see that the right side, just about on every car that has ball joints, if you got ball joints bad, I can just about guarantee you the right side is worse than the left side. And that's just one of the things we've noticed over the years. After being in business since I was working on cars since I was 18 years old, 17, when did I start working on cars? 16 years old. Well, I take that back. I lied when I was a kid and told them I was 16 when I was really 15. Got a job pumping gas, but I've seen a lot of things over the years. And until the last 10 or so years, we were greasing. When a car came in for an oil change, one of the things you did, wiped off the grease fittings and with a clean rag, and got the sand off, and you injected grease into it. Cut just a couple pumps, all it took. Nothing serious, just to put grease in there. And back then, years ago, it was not uncommon for us to go 100,000 miles on a set of ball joints. It really wasn't. Now, if you get more than 50,000 miles on a set of ball joints, I am surprised. Matter of fact, I'm almost shocked, because we just don't see it. We see so many trucks coming in here with 50, 60, 70, 80,000 miles that ball joints will wear out. If it's a Ford truck, we laugh about it. Normally at 36,000 1 mile, they're wore out. I know that's, and that's not true. Normally it's a little bit more, but we have seen several trucks over the years at 36,000, just out of warranty. Ball joints have a 1/4 inch play in them. I'm sure they had more play in them a lot earlier than that, but no one bothered to check them because, well, a lot of people don't get their alignments checked. That's the thing that ball joints affect, it's your alignment. Now, you say, well, big deal, so my alignment's out. What do you think wears your tires out? It's your alignment out because the parts are wore out, and it makes your tires go down the road like you're dragging your feet, and it wears the inside or the outside edge of your tires. So if you want to get tires that last like they're supposed to, and I'd say the average length of time for tires For good, better, best, the best tires are going to go 100,000 miles for the best tires you can get out there. The good tires are better tires. You know, you have good, better, best. The better tires probably get about 70,000, 60, 70,000. And just the good ones, you know, the ones that you buy, the real inexpensive, 30 to 40,000, somewhere in that general area. So you get twice as much with the better tires, but the older a tire gets, the less traction it has. That's why it's so very, very important to keep your alignment right and your suspension right, because if your tires are getting older and they can't grip quite as well, and say your alignment's off or your ball joints aren't quite right, it's NQR, you may not be able to maintain control of your vehicle. That's why I'm saying it's very, very important when every time you get an oil change, have your shop check your suspension. At James Auto Center, every car that comes in here, for an oil change, no matter what it comes in for. You know, if it comes in here for transmission service, not only are we going to do transmission service, but we're going to check out everything involved, like what keeps that transmission alive? It's the cooling system. So we make sure the radiator's working like it's supposed to. We make sure the fluid's getting rid of heat through the radiator. We want to see 30 degrees of heat being taken out of the radiator, sitting still while the air conditioning's on and everything's fully loaded. We want to see 30 degrees of temperature difference between incoming and outgoing of the radiator. That way we save the transmission. We do things like that when a car comes in. We check the suspension. We check the lights. We check the 5-gas coming out the tailpipe. I don't know any shop that does that. And I've had shops say, well, why the heck would you check 5-gas? I said, how do you check for oxides or nitrogen buildup? And they look at me and go, what are you talking about? And I go, how do you know when you got too much carbon on the inside of your combustion chambers and you've got excessive amounts of oxides of nitrogen, overworking your catalytic converter? And about that time, it usually goes over their head when I start talking about oxides of nitrogen, because they don't have a 5-gas machine. If you don't have a 5-gas machine, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But your catalytic converter is supposed to take oxides of nitrogen, which causes smog, and breaks it into nitrogen and oxygen. Both of them are harmless. Smog, on the other hand, is what causes that when you go offshore, you see that brown haze over Panama City. That is from cars, and that's smog. And that's what a catalytic converter does, is break that apart. So the thing we do is we make sure that cars are clean coming out of the tailpipe. And a lot of times you won't have a check engine light, but you may be producing too much smog because your catalytic converter is working so hard, because it's so overloaded, because no one has ever bothered to tell you, hey, maybe it's time for you to clean your injectors. What a novel idea. Or clean your combustion chamber. If you got a direct injection engine, you bet, and you got a car starts up in the morning, kind of misses for you a little bit, you need to get that looked at before things get worse. Because if you let a direct injection engine go too long, it's those little things like ball joints. You let them go too long, you end up wearing your tires out on alignment. You end up spending another $1,000 needlessly for tires, just because you could have changed the ball joint or done an alignment or something simple like that. And it makes the car safer and more dependable to get in it. And you could take a trip anywhere you want to go when you feel like going. You don't have to sit there. I've had people come in here, I'm going to go out of town. I hear a noise in my front end. How long have you been hearing that noise? Oh, about 6 months now. And you hadn't looked at it? Yeah, we got cords showing through your tire. Maybe there's a problem here. Pay attention to your cars, because when I see that guy coming down the road, I pull off and let him go past me. I do, because that car is dangerous. I've had a few cars out here I've had to have towed out because they were so dangerous I couldn't let them leave on their own. Hey, this is James Morse. We're going to be right back. If you got an automotive question, concerned about something you don't know what quite to be concerned about, but you know something's NQR, not quite right, give us a call, 850-763-0555, and maybe we can point you in the right direction. We'll be right back. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900. Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
All right. I think we've been talking about suspension. Welcome back to my show. We were talking about, putting greasing your front end, making sure you grease them. Some cars, like I said, they don't have grease fittings, they got plugs. What I was trying to say is if you do have plugs in your car and your car's a new car, if you possibly, before you buy the car, ask them if they have plugs in it. You may have to look yourself if it's a brand new car. And if there's a plug in the bottom of the ball joint, have them pay a little bit extra money, have them remove the plugs and put in grease fittings. Yeah, it may cost you an extra $100 to do that, but you'll save thousands of dollars down the road. And if you got a new car, please do that before you take the car off the lot. You will be much, much happier if you can do it, especially if it's a truck. Trucks, just about every truck I know have plugs, grease fittings. They just don't have grease fittings on them. Now, I shouldn't say that all of them. There's some that have no place for grease fittings, and someone call me up and say, hey, I bought a truck and there are no grease fittings on it. Okay, that may be. But the thing I'm trying to say is let's be proactive. Let's try to go above what, instead of being crisis management, waiting until we have that clackety noise. It's when we hit bumps from wore out ball joints or wore out sway bar end links or whatever the case may be, something wore out. Let's be proactive. Take those plugs out and put in grease fittings and grease our cars and trucks every time we get the oil change. Now, you don't have to put grease in where it starts to squirt out. That's what, I guess, why they did that, because people would get, I've seen techs work for me, oil change people, they'd put in every car that came in from oil change, they would just about use an entire cartridge of grease to fill them up. I'm going, it's not necessary, just a couple of squirts, click, click, that's all you need. Just enough to go inside there to lubricate. Even the new ball joints we get, when we get a brand new ball joint that doesn't come with a grease fitting on it, aftermarket or even factory, we'll take the cup, the rubber cup, and we'll pack that full of grease, the dust boot, and slam it over the ball joint and lock it down. That way at least we got some extra protection, because they don't put a lot of grease in these things. They really don't. I've put ball joints on a car that had 50,000 miles on it and it had no grease fittings in it. I told the customer, I said, I got to do this to change it. I said, there's just no way we're going to be able to guarantee these ball joints aren't going to wear out on you. By the time the car gets 100,000 miles on it, they're wore out again. And there's no grease fittings on it. Now, the cars that I've been able, now here, Moog, M-O-O-G auto parts, Moog parts, they're front end parts. Most of the parts they sell have grease fittings in it. They are the best parts, front end parts. As a matter of fact, the manufacturer, in a lot of cases, use Moog front end parts. Those that don't, probably because they cost a little bit more, but Moog, M-O-O-G, are the best front end parts out there. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you're going to do front end work and you think you know how to change a ball joint, you need to make sure you know how to change a ball joint. Make sure you have the right tools. It's not like it used to be where you go out there and bang them with a hammer and knock them out and bang them with a hammer to drop them back in. If you've got magnesium lower control arms, you don't want to do that. You need to press them in and press them out, because you'll just booger them up and they'll never be tight. I've seen that more than once. And if you've got the magnesium, or even on General Motors or Ford, aluminum, magnesium, aluminum upper control arms, you don't take a hammer and knock them apart. I know that's what we used to do years ago, but remember, we were dealing with steel and cast iron and things like that. It could take a licking and keep on ticking. Aluminum, it don't take kindly to being smacked. It malforms it. It distorts it. So they make tools to put in between there that literally you tighten them down and it pops them apart safely without doing damage on them. So if you're going to do your own front end work, do a little investigating on what tools are necessary, what tools you can possibly go rent. A lot of parts stores will rent you front end tools. I don't know if they rent those tools out, but I know that I probably got several $1,000s worth of tools just for disassembling front ends, ball joints, tie rod ends, whatever it is, taking inner tie rod ends out of a rack and pinion, special tools. And then sometimes those special tools just don't work. We end up using a pair of pliers. Had that happen the other day. Couldn't get a tie rod end to save my life out with my special tool. And I looked at my guy and said, we can't get that tool out with this. My guy said, what are you going to do? I said, you got a pipe wrench? He goes, yeah. I I said, give me your pipe wrench. Grabbed the pipe wrench, kind of put it at an angle, opened the jaws up, grabbed a hold of it, popped it right out. I mean, we're able to back it off. I've been doing this for 40 years, so I know a few little tricks out there, and I'm trying to pass these tricks on to the average guy out there listening or girl out there listening that likes to work on their car and save money. You can, if you do your own front end, what a shop would charge $1,000 to do, you could probably fix yourself for $200. You go, wow, that's a big savings. Well, yeah, it's a lot of work too. You're probably talking about 5-6 hours worth of work with air tools and, you know, and jacks and stands, and I mean, it's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. But I've been doing it so long, my shop's been doing it so long. To me, working on front end is kind of relaxing. It's not real technical work. It's just, you know, you take things apart, you put things back in. It's the same way it's been for years, other than you just have to use certain tools to take things apart, especially if they have aluminum A-frames and control arms and steering knuckles. And if they're aluminum, you just can't be hitting them willy-nilly with a 2.5-pound sledgehammer. They just don't take kindly to that. So that's why I'm just trying to give you a little information out there to help you, point you in the right direction if you want to do some of your auto repair. The other thing is shocks. No one changes their McPherson struts till something is just, I guess their tires just won't hardly stay on there anymore. We see people come in and they complain about a vibration. And we say, okay, well, it's their tires, you know, maybe we need to balance them. So we balance the tires and when we put them on the machine, we notice the tires are cupped. They're wore at an angle. It's kind of a right angle. So if the tread goes like this, you know, this is your tread of your tire with the tread right here, we'll see it angled across like that, across the tread, where it's been worn, kind of like cupping. Well, it's not really cupping, but it's where it's been going down the road and bouncing. That's from bad struts. It's very, very common after you get over 75 to 100,000 miles on most cars. Most people don't change their struts as long as they own the car. I've had people with 200,000 miles on a car, and they say, yeah, I like my car, but just, you know, I'm thinking about getting a new car. And I go, why do you want to get a new car? Well, it's just not the same ride I used to have. I said, does your car look good? Looks good to me. Yeah, run good? Yeah. All the maintenance up on it? Yeah. I said, why don't you change your struts? And they go, what good's that going to do? I said, change your struts, ride like a brand new car. It really will. Change your struts. If you've got a car that rides good, well, rides okay, handles okay, your tires are okay, but you've got 100,000 miles on it, and you know, you're kind of going, yeah, maybe it's time to get rid of a new car. You want to get a car that rides like it's supposed to, handles like it's supposed to, does what it's supposed to. You put in a fully loaded strut assemblies with springs and mounts that you can buy from Moog. Or is it Moog we buy them from, Anna Marie? I think Moog sells them. Monroe or Moog, I can't remember who it is. But anyway, those quick mount struts, whoa! Those things are the cat's meow, the bee's knees, what do you want to call it? They are great. They make the difference between a good ride and a great ride. If you want to have a car that's got a ride like it had when it was new, and you've got 100,000 miles on it, you've got a Toyota Camry, you got a Nissan, you got a Subaru, you got any of these cars, even my Toyota Prius, it's got 136,000 miles somewhere in that area. I was telling my wife the other day, I said, my tires are fine, everything's great, but I don't have the ride I used to have. I can feel the little bumps in the road when I go down Star Avenue, and there's some of those bumps are pretty tight there, and you go, brrr, wow. But it's my struts. They've got too many miles on it. If I change the struts, it'll ride like a brand new one again. And when you change the struts, you got to do an alignment. Okay, that's just one of those things. You should be doing an alignment every year, whether you want to or not, because we don't exactly have the finest roads in Bay County. And I should say in the state of Florida, we do have pretty good roads. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been in some counties around state of Florida that have terrible roads. Not going to mention where they are, but you know what I'm talking about, and my viewing audience out there. Northwest Florida, there's some roads out there that haven't seen any new asphalt on them in 20 years. Whew. There's some rough roads out there, but there are some really good ones as well. But the ride will be much, much better, and it also makes your car safer. Yeah, it makes your car safer. If you have good shocks and struts on there, you will stop a minimum of 10% shorter distance with good shocks over bad shocks. Honest to goodness. They've done demonstrations. They've performed demonstrations over the years showing wore out shocks on a panic stop at 50 miles an hour, how the tire will bounce. Even if you got analog brakes on it, it still will bounce and you're not keeping traction with the road. And take the same car, put struts on it, do the same stopping maneuver, and how the tires stay on the ground and they stop a lot shorter distance. That's why you can stop 10% shorter with good struts than you can with bad struts and shocks, because the tire stays on the ground, it doesn't bounce. Honest. It's just physics. I mean, you know, I never took physics in high school, but you know, or chemistry, but I really wish I had, because as I've gotten older, I've realized physics and cars go hand in hand. Chemistry and cars go hand in hand. They didn't teach this when I was in high school, how much chemistry was part of auto repair. They didn't teach physics in high school, because I majored in high school in auto mechanics. Yeah, I lettered in auto mechanics. Well, my buddies were majoring in track and field and you know, all these in football. I had a letter jacket that said auto mechanic on it. Because I'd lettered in going to the Plymouth troubleshooting contest. I was able to go to the state contest. So I went to Metropolitan Vocational Technical School and I got me a letter jacket for being a really good auto technician. And ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be the best auto technician out there. And that's why I am coming to you every morning. For those that not do their own work, some people do their own work, but most people want someone to do it for them. And that's what James Auto Center has been doing for the last 38 years. Taking care of our customers. Not everyone's my customer. If you work on your own car and you do your own work, you're not my customer. You know, you're not. But if you don't work on your own car and you got a good job and you want me to fix it and you can afford to pay for it, I'm more than happy to take care of you. And if you're from the Port St. Joe area, or you're from Apalachicola, or people west of us, I have people say, it's so far to drive and I got to leave my car, then I got to get another ride. No, you don't. You just make arrangements with us. You bring your car here. We'll give you a car to take back home with you. And when your car is ready, we'll call you. You bring my car back. All you got to do is make sure you put gas back in it. That's all we're asking. Don't wreck it. You know, that's all we're asking. If you'll do that, bring the car back full of gas. We gave it to you full of gas. Bring it back full of gas. That's all we're asking. And it costs you nothing but your time to bring your car over here for us to take a look at it. And then we can tell you if we can take care of it. If we can take care of it for you, it's great. But there's a lot of shops there's not very many shops to the east of us between here and Tallahassee. There's a lot of kind of a dead zone area from Mexico Beach all the way to, well, almost Apalachicola. I mean, there's a few shops, but not that many. And not a lot of shops are able to work on the newer cars. And that's what we are. We're your dealership alternative. We can do the things that dealers do. We have the same dealer equipment as far as being able to program cars and scanners to be able to do the things with electronics that, well, a lot of shops can't do because they haven't invested in that type of material. But that's what we do at James Auto Center. We want to keep your car safe. We want to keep it dependable. We want to keep it on the road. All it requires is you to come by, meet us, go for a test drive with us, and we can give you an idea of what we need to do to keep your car safe and dependable and on the road. And all that costs you is just a few minutes of your time. We'll be back tomorrow morning right here on Fox 28 WPGX. Give us a call then. Bye-bye, everybody.
Ask Mrs. J why she comes to James Auto Center to get her car repaired.
I have to go to work, Tommy has soccer practice, Mike has karate, plus Kelly has ballet and tap. Bill, my husband, has softball and I have to meet him after that. I have a business meeting. On Wednesdays I have church and all those other after-school functions that just pop up.
Mrs. J, why do you take your car to James Auto Center?
Didn't you hear what I was saying? I need my car.
There you have it. She needs her car.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guarantee. Beep, 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 yeah.